This will be a journey around our shoreline and through our shared history and humanity. It'll also be a journey through time. So before we start, we are going to be exploring some of those vast time frames and ancient rhythms that have brought us to this point. For most of us, the age of the Earth seems almost incomprehensible. Even our own history seems incredibly ancient to us. But to get some perspective, imagine that the Earth was formed just one day ago. If the Earth is 24 hours old, then we modern humans have been around for just 1.3 seconds. Here in Table Bay stands a concrete reminder of that great sweep of time. It's easy to see why Table Mountain is one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. The Khoisan named it Hurik Kwahu, the mountain in the sea. And in African myth, it was a sentinel standing here forever to guard against a huge sea serpent. To us humans, geological time can seem like forever. But even this ancient mountain hasn't been here for all eternity. In fact, Table Mountain and the forces that shaped it are relatively new phenomena. About 200 million years ago, a mighty collision was coming to an end. 2 ancient continents had smashed into each other, a global head-on crash millions of years in the making. That slow impact forced the bedrock to fold or bend back on itself, forming a range of mountains known as the Cape Fold Belt. Even now, one can still see evidence of that violent impact in the beautiful curves and folds in many of the mountainsides in the Western Cape. But incredibly, Table Mountain looks very different from the rest of the Cape Fold Belt. Well, for one thing, it isn't really folded, but is in fact quite flat. Now, the reason for this takes us back to, well, between 500 and 330 million years, to when the sediments that make up Table Mountain were being slowly deposited, layer upon layer. And in a few places, sediments were laid down directly over very hard, very large Cape granite. And it was in fact these massive layers of granite that protected Table Mountain from the immense compression forces that form the Cape Fold Belt. There's no better place to see these remarkable events than at Chapman's Peak, where the road follows the interface between the solid granite below and the sedimentary rock above. But just as these uprisings formed over millennia, they also started eroding away again. This bottle of water here represents hundreds of millions of years of rain, flood, wind and fire, the elements in a bottle. Bring them together and let's see what happens. The softer sedimentary layers are eroded away, revealing what we see here, the leftovers of hard peninsular sandstone. Not quite Table Mountain, but you get the picture. But what of the future? Well, there's good news and bad news. The bad news is that Table Mountain is crumbling. Yes, it's coming apart. But the good news is that it'll be another 50 to 100 million years before it's gone. Rising sea levels are a political hot potato these days, thanks to the raging debate around humankind's contribution to climate change. But of course, the fact is, sea levels have been rising and falling for millennia. Earth warms and cools in great cycles of roughly 100,000 years. During the cold snaps, called periods of glaciation, the polar regions freeze, trapping huge amounts of water, lowering sea levels and exposing large swatches of coastal plain. When the planet warms up again, the ice caps release water, and oceans begin to creep upwards again. This is the CBD of the Cape Town suburb of Rondebosch. Just another busy suburban street on the Cape Peninsula. But 2 million years ago, not only was Rondebosch not Rondebosch, but the peninsula did not exist. It was an island. Rondebosch, 2 million years ago. It all looks strangely familiar with plant and animal life, but between here and the rest of Africa, there are about 15 kilometers of Atlantic Ocean. We can easily imagine the Cape looking very different 2 million years ago.
But just 20,000 years ago, this shoreline looked even more different. The people who lived here may have looked more or less identical to us, but their coast would have been unrecognizable to us today. To see why, I'm going to borrow a very modern vantage point.
About 20,000 years ago, much of the northern hemisphere was locked in a so-called ice age. With huge volumes of water frozen solid, sea levels had reached the lowest point for thousands of years. And down here in the Cape, that resulted in a landscape that was very unlike what we know today. Table Bay did not exist. In fact, the shoreline was about 35 kilometers west from where it is now, and Robben Island formed part of that landmass. In fact, this entire region would have been one huge plain of grass.
The oceans have risen and fallen, and will continue to do so long after our species is gone. It may seem daunting to us in our fragile cities clinging to the shore, but it is also a timely reminder that the planet's rhythms don't take much notice of human needs.